What should the plan be for Zayne Parekh as he works his way back from injury? Hey everyone, welcome into Hot Topics. Rob Wong, joined alongside by Postmedia Calgary Flames writers Wes Gilbertson and Danny Austin. And guys, it's been tough sledding for the Flames of late as they lose another one, this time in Boston. We'll get to that game in just a moment. Got to start though with the news on Thursday that defenseman Zayne Parekh is day-to-day with an upper body injury that he suffered at the World Juniors. Wes, it's been an eventful few weeks for Parekh on and off the ice. Once he is ready to return, though, what do you think is the best course of action for him the rest of the season?
Yeah, it's a great question, and Rob, I think it really depends on when he's ready to return. You know, the Flames put out a statement, an announcement, whatever you want to call it, on social media on Thursday, saying Zayne Parekh's day to day with a upper body injury, which really tells us nothing beyond please stop asking us if he's going to be in the lineup tonight. We'll tell you when he is, and so. To me, the plan really hinges on, are we talking about a week or are we talking about 3 weeks? How long is Zayne Parekh going to be out of the lineup? I chatted with Zayne right before he was loaned to Team Canada for the World Juniors, and we were kind of batting around this idea that he'd go and build up his confidence. And I asked him, well, can you just explain what sort of difference that would make? And he went back to last April. He just put up basically record numbers with the Saginaw Spirit in the OHL. And he said, when I got to the NHL, I kind of felt untouchable. Like my confidence was soaring and I felt like I could do no wrong. And he was essentially saying, I want to try playing in the NHL like that again. And so if you can get him back from injury while his confidence is still at the level it is after a record performance at the World Juniors, I think you have to put him in right away. I think there's a learning opportunity for both the organization and for the 19-year-old defenseman. What does a fully confident Zayne Parekh look like in NHL regular season games? And yet you could convince me, if the injury keeps him out a little bit longer, that the Flames would want to take advantage of this one-time AHL conditioning stint. And perhaps, and I hate the idea, but if he's going to miss a bunch more time, maybe you do have to send him back to junior. Now, I will note, I think that would have to happen in the next day or two because of those deadlines. So I doubt that's going to be the case. But what I'm trying to say is everyone wants to know what's the plan for Zayne Parekh, and I'm guilty of that too. There's probably 3 or 4 plans depending on when they can get him back up and running.
Yeah, and I think what we saw a little bit through the fall was sort of the burden of expectations, and that's true both of the player, who, as Wes said, I mean, this player puts a lot of pressure on himself, and oh, I want to come in and I want to feel untouchable and try to play that game in the NHL. Well, like, that's great, but that game might not work for you as a 19-year-old in the NHL, and quite frankly, whatever you were doing didn't really work in the NHL. Zayne was not great. I do not think you can make a legitimate argument that he was one of their, at this point, 7 best defensemen. Hunter Brzustewicz has certainly come in and dramatically overperformed Zayne in the time that we've seen both players. I'd put Braden Pahal above him as well. So, with Zayne, I think that they're in both a no-win and I guess a little bit of a no-lose situation, because I think ideally Zayne would be playing right now in the NCAA or the AHL if that was possible. And, he's stuck between this junior and NHL decision. And I don't think he's really at the NHL level yet. And I also, I do think what I thought all summer and continue to think with the fall, there's not a ton of reason to send him down to junior beyond, hey, just go dominate. And, what you're trying to get this guy to do is adjust his game to the NHL. So I imagine what we're going to have is a lot of conversations like this. And I think we're going to try to keep them a little more just like chill. And we're going to talk in our yoga voices and do all that. But, the problem is that if he's a healthy scratch, we see there's a huge reaction from the fan base. And the fan base says, what are you doing? Why is Zayne not in? And the thing is, Zayne has to learn how to play professional hockey. And playing at the World Juniors, that's not the same as playing at the NHL. It's just, it's a completely different level. So, I think the plan for Zayne has to still be a little bit that he has to earn his playing time. I don't think that Zayne should just be getting put in the lineup every night. It's not consistent with the way that the Flames or any team around the NHL does business. So, I don't expect to see him in 100% of games when he's healthy.
But this, like what Danny's getting at is the great debate in this whole thing is, maybe Zayne Parekh wouldn't be in their top six defense options right now if you're trying to win a game on January 11th or on January 15th or what have you. Yeah, can Braden Pahal be more steady as your seventh defenseman? Sure, he's been doing it for a while. Is Hunter Brustevich, because of a year and a half in the AHL, ahead of Zayne Parekh in terms of pro type maturity? Yes, he is. This is where the Flames can't get stuck, is not investing somehow in Zayne Parech's future. The worst way to handle this is just to continue to healthy scratch him without a plan. And I'm not saying there's not a plan, but if you want to do the Leo Carlsson and have him pump iron every day, fine, make that the plan. If you want to take advantage of the conditioning stint, make that the plan. If the plan is, well, we'll just kind of treat him like every other defenseman, and if you're not in our best six guys, then you can just sit and watch, that won't work. Like this is the most unique talent that Danny and I have covered among defensemen in our careers in Calgary. Like, they haven't had a blue liner close to this. You can't treat him with the same gloves you treat everyone else. And that's not saying play him for 30 minutes a night, and if he goes -6, just kind of throw your arms up in the air and say, well, no big deal. But, you need to treat this guy different because he is different.
Can I ask, and Rob, I apologize for doing your job here, but Wes, like, do you think they should articulate that plan to the public? Because it's something that, as you were saying it, like, I've been part of what I think has been challenging is that fans are reacting, and rightfully so. I'm not criticizing fans for this, but to every decision as it pertains to Zayne. So should the team come out and say, this is what these next 3 months are going to look like?
I think fans would love if they would, but I bet if Rob could get the Flames to get all their coaches and management on a Zoom call and make a video with them, there wouldn't be a lot of consensus on the best plan for Zayne. And that's probably part of the issue, right? It's easy to say, like, World Juniors was easy to look at as sort of an end of the road, at least that stretch of road, because they said, oh, well, we'll send him to World Juniors and we'll hope that it goes well and he builds his confidence and then we can go from there. I don't think anyone anticipated that building his confidence would look like 13 points in 7 games and a new record for Canadian defensemen at the World Juniors. And now they're kind of going, oh, okay. Now what? And it's not like they don't all have ideas, but I think there's probably some differing opinion. Yeah, Ryan Huska's trying to win hockey games on January 10th, January 9th, whatever today is. And so, yeah, he's probably going to play the sixth defenseman he trusts the most. A guy like Craig Conroy in the GM's office can look and say, when we're contending at Scotia Place, we need, like, on the road back to contention, there's certain picks that have to be hits. They can't be misses, and Zayne Parekh is one of them. And so now it's time to figure out how to help nurture his game to get it there.
Yeah, I think you guys have laid it out perfectly, that it's there's a lot of layers to this onion. It's not an easy thing to try to plan or figure out. He's in a situation where he's clearly too good for junior, as we saw at the World Juniors, but maybe not ready for pro hockey. And then you look around the league and guys like Matthew Schaefer tearing it up, and you're thinking, well, why can't we give our guy that type of opportunity? But it's clearly not that simple for Zayne Parekh, who is still going to have a pretty long NHL career. I think we're all in agreement there, but maybe not ready for prime time just yet, as he still gets used to the NHL game. So the Flames dropping their 4th straight after a 4-1 loss in Boston. Danny, the road trip not gotten off to a great start. In your opinion, what's gone wrong for the Flames here during this recent losing skid?
Boy, it's hard. I just looked at the giant calendar that I have on my wall next to me. And I was like, no, it was literally a week ago where we were looking back at December and being like, this team is 1 point out of a playoff spot, and everything seems to have turned around, and they've figured it out, and it has turned around in a hurry. It's really gone off a cliff a little bit here. A couple 4-1 losses here, a 5-1 in there. I'm struggling a little bit to pinpoint exactly what it is. And part of that is that when the Flames are winning games and are looking good, like, they're not always the most entertaining team. A lot of it is playing sort of grinding, get pucks in deep, recover them. in soccer, they talk about having the press, just like staying on top of your opponent. And that's what the Flames do. And, I certainly think that there's been less of a commitment to that. I think the players have alluded to that they haven't been playing quite as hard. It's difficult because, last night they played in Boston. It was the second game of a back-to-back. Dustin Wolf, because Devin Cooley has been sick, has just been playing. I mean, he's been playing too much, frankly, and Ryan Huska alluded to that in his post-game comments, that this was not the plan to have him playing in Montreal one night. Well, I mean, Calgary one night, Montreal 2 nights later, and then Boston the next night. So, how much better would Dustin Wolf be if he was properly being sort of managed and rested? And, would these games be closer? Quite possibly, but you can't get mad or blame Dustin Wolf for any of this because he's taken on such a workload and is making some really great saves. I don't think last night in Boston was by any means on his shoulders, but the reality is, like, the Flames need to win low scoring games. So when they're allowing 3, 4, or 5 goals, you have to start there. Like the defensive side of the game has not been where it needs to be. They need to be winning games 1-0 or 2-1 realistically. And that would be my starting point. I'm going to be unpacking this for a story throughout the morning, and I'd probably have a better answer in 4 hours. But but for me, it's that. It's, as much as we want to focus on, they're not producing any offense, that's not how this team wins games. It's that there's been lapses at the other end.
I think probably, and this certainly overlaps with what Danny just said. For me, the root of it is that nobody is at the top of their game. That, Dustin Wolf, while overworked, has made a ton of big saves, but has also had some mistakes. I think of the sort of rare puck handling gaffe against the Nashville Predators, which is one of the reasons that the Flames start that losing skid to begin with. Nazem Kadri hasn't scored in 9 straight games now. Jonathan Huberdeau is not producing offensively. Even the Backlund Coleman line that's been so good for this Flames team looks just a little bit off it right now. I wonder, I do wonder about the sort of grinding style and the fatigue that's set in, and sort of the spidey senses tip off on that, because they went, before the Seattle game, they did an optional morning skate after a day off, which you almost never see. Like, if a team has the previous day off, it's a full morning skate, but they went optional. They traveled on Tuesday to Montreal, and they did another optional morning skate on Wednesday. And so my hunch is that Ryan Huska's pulse is that, this group is worn out. And I don't say that to make excuses. It's just a reason that a team that basically that basically needs everything to go their way to win games, like, their margins are so thin that everything has to kind of fall the right direction for them, and it just hasn't been. And now I'm curious about the sort of mindset moving forward, because they showed a lot of resilience to dig themselves out of a hole. When we all said it was a lost season in October, they kind of said, hey, hang on a second, watch this. But we're getting pretty darn close to lost season territory again, and I'm not sure that even they can convince themselves otherwise.
Yeah, this team could never afford, with the start that they had, another dip. Like, you can, a team like that can have one dip, and they're having the second one right now. And I mean, I think I was looking it up last night post game, and by the time they take the ice against the Penguins on Saturday, they might be 8 points out of a playoff spot. That's it may not be as big. I don't have the numbers, but that's pretty much as big as they were at the beginning of November. And it took a lot of work to get out. And the games have come fast and furious. But when they get back from the Olympic game in March, it's going to be every night, every second night. And as Wes just said, I couldn't have said it better. But like it takes a lot out of them to play this style. Like, they have to empty the tank every single night, and it's hard to refill it with the way the schedule is right now.
Well, it's one thing to be losing 4 games and maybe picking up some loser points in overtime or a shootout, but to get no points in 4 games, losing all of them in regulation, very tough when you're trying to chase down some teams in front of you. But we'll see how the Flames bounce back against the Penguins on Saturday. As always, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. For Wes Gilbertson and Danny Austin, I'm Rob Wong. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you on the next one.